This is the runners session of this year's freelance fair, the loneliness of the long distance runner, the loneliness of the short contract runner. I'm Martin Spence, I'm Assistant General Secretary of TALK2, and I'll be chairing this afternoon's session, for which we have assembled a superb panel. I'll briefly introduce them and then I'll ask them just to say a few words about themselves so that you have some idea where they're coming from and maybe consider them for your questions and contributions in a bit. On my far left, on your right, Priscilla Balfour from 4Talent at Channel 4, a talent coordinator who'll be saying a few words in a minute. Next to me, Amy Mobley from Tiger Aspect, a drama production manager, but a former runner herself. On my right, Grace Owen, the founder of TALK2, a talent finder and researcher. And on the right, Donald Ian Brown, who I'm advised we're allowed to call DI, who's got 2 jobs at the BBC, which sounds greedy to me, but I'm sure he'll justify himself in a minute or two. So perhaps running through in the same order, Priscilla, do you just want to say a few words about your background?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Priscilla Balfour. I'm the industry talent specialist at Channel 4, and I look after 4Talent. 4Talent is the bit of Channel 4 that works across the country with new talent and young people. I manage the production training scheme, apprenticeship programme, for crew, and we also run 4Talent days where we kind of go around the country to engage and inspire young people about a career in the industry.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm the drama production manager at Tiger Aspect, which means I oversee all the dramas that we're currently shooting, and I liaise closely with the production offices, the production coordinators, the production managers on each of our shows, and I'm the link between Tiger Aspect and that production. I did a film degree, I was a runner, I've worked my way up to production manager now, so I know where a lot of you are coming from.
Hi everyone, I'm Grace. I'm the founder of TALK2, which is a charity networking event held regularly in London. My background's also production. I worked from being a runner to a researcher, and then moved across into being a talent coordinator. So at the moment I help staff up across all the productions at Betty.
And I'm Donald Ian Brown. I do have 2 jobs. I'm a head of the Production Talent Network for BBC Television, and also I live in Glasgow, and I'm the head of editorial operations for BBC Scotland, so kind of carry 2 jobs. My history is that I started work actually as a presenter, but I knew it wasn't brilliant, so I looked to diversify. And I've carried out most jobs in production across both radio and television over the years. So if I took my clothes off, you'd see the scars.
We won't do that, DI. Okay, look, this is how I suggest we structure our session this afternoon. TALK2 recently ran a survey of runners, for runners, by runners, and about running, which has actually thrown up some very interesting results. And what I'd like to do is try to structure our discussion about the issues that came up from that. But I very much want to leave time at the end of the session for a discussion about what we do next, about good things that are going on out there, about good practice, about steps we could take to actually improve things in our industry. There is no question but that there are problems. There's no question but that there is real exploitation out there, and we will be discussing that. But it would be a real lost opportunity, in my view, I think, in the shared view of the panel, if we don't actually start to chart out some practical steps forward rather than just wallow in shared despair. So I'd like to kick things off, if I may, by addressing questions of access to the work in the first place. And just to give you a few headline findings from our survey, what we found was a very unbalanced picture of the mainly young people who are actually finding work as runners. Unbalanced, I mean, in terms of diversity, in terms of ethnic background. 80% of those who responded to our survey described themselves as white British, and another 12 or 15% as not British but still white. 2.5% black British, 2.5% Asian British. Now, in terms of the nature of our population in this country in 2014, and especially the nature of the population in London and the South East, which is where most of the industry is based, that is pretty appalling in terms of the lack of diversity. It's not new. It's not a problem that's confined to runners. It's across the industry. We know it is. But this, yet again, has highlighted that issue. So let's hold that thought. In terms of finding work, between 40 and 50% of respondents said they found their work as runners through word of mouth. Some through ads, mostly online ads. Some, about 18%, through speculative applications by just making a pitch at a potential employer and actually, you strike lucky. But the single most common way of finding work is through word of mouth, through networks, through who you know. So, question, how do you get to know the people you need to know in order to start getting work? And finally, there's this question of age. Most of the people who responded were in their 20s, not actually in their early 20s, but overwhelmingly in their mid and late 20s. And an issue of driving came up quite regularly, of people saying, actually, it's a regular requirement, if you're going to be a runner, that you have to be able to drive, but a lot of insurers have their own insurance provisions that say they will not employ anybody to drive who's aged less than 23 or sometimes less than 25. So there's all sorts of contradictory factors there. Now, those are just a few things I'm throwing out. I wonder, first of all, if any members of the panel have got any comments to make about the question of diversity, the question of how you find the work in the first place, and this question of the age of runners and the sort of demands that can throw up.
I'll go on that, Martin. I think the reality is that there is an issue about BAME talent and how we retain it. I think there's an opportunity to get in, but I'm not sure that we're very good at retaining people once they get in and once they get the experience. You know, the whole issue of how we get difference into each of our different organisations is something that's quite well rehearsed and has been, spoken about at the minute. But the key, I think, for certainly from the BBC's perspective, is that we run schemes for people to get in. And our job then is to ensure that the runner or the PMA or whoever it is, we then try and find opportunities for them thereafter. We have a very clear policy of not simply getting in because of who you know. I can't say that people don't slip in through the net, but I would like to think that through the work experience provision that we've got and the fact that we police it quite heavily, we are trying to ensure that there's an equality of opportunity for people to certainly come for work experience, which is a maximum of 4 weeks, and anything other than that gets paid. And then there's the production talent pool, which is advertised every year, where we take about 100 people across the whole of the UK, which are then, there's the opportunity to go into the training scheme. We also we've got 179 apprentices across the whole of the BBC as well. And again, that's across the whole of the UK. So that's where we're seeing our entry level talent coming from. There is without question an issue about applicants coming from different backgrounds. And it's something that we need to both recognise but also put in place provision to try and attract people to apply for those different opportunities. And we've done that recently by working with Mama Youth and also with working with the Stephen Lawrence Trust. And at the moment we've got about 30 young, talented individuals who are going through these two different schemes and are in the moment, just as we speak on Monday, the Stephen Lawrence trainees are graduating from that training programme. So, and what we've also done is we've gone on to create this thing which is called the pod. It's the wrong word for it, but essentially what we're going to do is make sure that those people that are coming off those schemes are then looked for the first opportunities that are available in production. We're not taking anybody from outside those schemes. They're all kind of come flowing in through those schemes because we believe we're putting the effort in to train those people. Then we should see the return on that in terms of those people going into production.
I think just to kind of add to, I'm going to call you DI, is that okay?
Yeah, of course it is.
So just to kind of add to that, Channel 4, we run a very similar scheme to the BBC. It's our remit at Channel 4 to support talent. We have a strong emphasis on making sure that we open up our doors to everybody, regardless of what background you're from, because TV would be a very boring place if everybody was just like me, okay? So we do this in a number of ways. And in 2012, we decided that we would wrap a lot of the work that we do around social mobility. So again, it's going back to opening up our doors to everybody. But we found that evidence proved that young people from low-income backgrounds face 3 barriers when it came to kind of accessing our industry. Now, the first barrier was network. Okay, so young people weren't meeting people that worked in the industry. The second was information. A lot of young people or new talent didn't know where to go to find out about all the different kinds of roles. And the third was financial. Okay, so not everyone can live off the bank of mum and dad. And these are a lot of the issues that new talent and kind of young people are facing when they try and break into our industry. So in Channel 4 and at Full Talent, these are the things that we're addressing. And obviously the kind of diversity kind of agenda and everything fits into that. So all of our schemes are paid. You can only do work experience at Channel 4 if you've been on a Full Talent Day, and it's only for 2 weeks. 2 weeks work experience because it's in line with the government what's the right word for it? The government guidelines, yeah. So in line with the government guidelines, we then have our apprenticeships program, which again is the whole idea of addressing the social mobility agenda. And we've tripled the number of apprentices that we've brought into Channel 4 this year. And apprenticeships are a fantastic way to break into the industry if you haven't been to university, for example. You've just got a raw talent and you just want to work and gain a qualification at the same time. We run a production training scheme where we offer 12 placements a year. 50% of those placements this year will go to people with who are disabled, but we're also addressing all other areas of diversity on our production training scheme. So you come to Channel 4 once a month for training, but you're placed at one of the independent production companies where you get that kind of hands-on bespoke experience and you're paid a salary. So just like the BBC, we don't agree that young people or any new talent should work for free.
Both schemes are absolutely brilliant, and I'm sure you guys have heard of them before. But for the independent production companies, the budgets obviously just aren't quite the same, and the support can't inevitably be the same. But just kind of a point I'd like to make about knowing people, I don't see that ever changing. I think it will always work as a who you know kind of industry, because it is such kind of a personality-focused industry. You're working with people for long hours and you're working very closely with them, and you're working with contributors, and it's how you develop the relationships with them and all that kind of thing. So it's always going to be a who you know kind of situation. But from my background, before I started, I didn't know anyone. My mum didn't work in TV, my dad didn't have a contact. So if you don't know anyone, it shouldn't be used as an excuse why you can't get that foot in. I mean, there's obviously lots of different networking events, and cold calling your CV never got me anywhere. I don't know about the rest of the panel, but meeting people in various events, whether it's Full Talent Day or BBC Production Talent Scheme or TALK or RTS or whatever it is, there are definitely ways in, and you don't need to be the loudest mouth and go up to the person and, shove your CV in front of their face. You just need to, I hate to say this, but to be yourself and to have a chat with them, which sounds really simplified, but yeah.
I'd like to just say a bit about what Tiger Aspect's doing. We're working alongside Skillset. We have 4 productions going at the moment. We've got Ripper Street, we've got Peaky Blinders, we've got a big show called Fortitude, and a small 90-minute drama called Marvellous. And we are working along Skillset and as many trainees that we can place, we will contact Skillset and say, I would like an edit trainee, and they will send us the CVs of available edit trainees, and we will place them for as long as we can, minimum 4 weeks, no maximum. Well, there is a year, but so on Fortitude currently we have a makeup trainee, we have a costume trainee, an edit trainee, a camera trainee, and anyone with less than 12 months experience can apply and be part of that scheme. So anyone who, and you don't have to have any previous experience, so I would just say get your CVs onto that scheme, because all of the large indies now are approaching skill set and are signing up to the scheme. So it's a brilliant way in and to access. And I would just agree as well, just about putting yourself out there. I came from, I didn't have an uncle in the industry, an auntie in the industry. I didn't have anyone that lived in London. And it was just about putting yourself out there and taking any opportunity you can, whether it's a short film or, helping someone out for a few days, or, just going up to people, talking, being yourself, like you said, and just really getting to know people, because that is the way, and just meeting someone and network.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you've heard from all the panel. Any comments? Any pushback from the floor? Yeah.
Hi there. Yeah, I've researched a lot into some of the bigger BBC, Channel 4 apprenticeship schemes, etc. And I found that there is a contradiction in that being over 25, I can apply at least for some runner positions where you have to drive, you have to get car insurance and all of that kind of thing. But often the cut-off point for some of those schemes is either that, you can't have gone to university, or you have to be under 25. So I've found that there is a contradiction with the age restrictions for some of those things. And I did an MA, so I was 23 by the time I finished university. So I feel like I've missed that gap. Is there anything that can be done to address that? And also we heard earlier from someone who was a mature student who was just graduating, and she was in her early 30s. And again, she felt like the specific young kind of group was not overrepresented, but certainly provided for in a better way than for other people just starting out. What would you say or advise on that?
Well, I think that's a really good question. We meet new talent all the time that kind of discuss the same kind of topic with us. In terms of Channel 4 and Full Talent, we address this issue mainly through our production training scheme. Our production training scheme is for anybody that sees himself as a new talent that's trying to break into the industry. And like I said, it's a partnership with the indies, and we're looking at 3 roles. So trainee production coordinator, trainee researcher, and trainee technical assistant. And that's kind of an entry point if you're not in the kind of 16 to 25 category. But also at Channel 4, there are opportunities through different departments where you can break in. So for example, at the moment, we've just finished advertising for a production assistant in our creative department. So it's not a runner, it's a production assistant, it's a salary of 23,000. So those opportunities are out there, and I do understand your frustration because they are few and far between. But you just really have to kind of get out there, network, talk to as many people as possible, go and have coffees with people. I say it all the time, like, go and have a coffee with this person, they'll be able to help you. And they're like, really? Are they really going to want to have a coffee with me? But if you've got ideas, you see yourself as being talented, why not? 9 times out of 10, the person will say yes. And if they don't, you probably don't want to meet them anyway. So definitely there are opportunities like that. At Channel 4, there's also a department called Creative Diversity, and they don't just work with young people, they work with new talent. So there was 2 guys that wrote Run, I don't know, a Channel 4 drama called Run, Marlon and Daniel, and they've just won a breakthrough BAFTA. And they were fantastic. They'd never done any TV work before, but Channel 4 worked with them, nurtured their talent, and now they're BAFTA award winners, and they didn't come through an entry-level scheme.
Can I just comment also, just in terms of ages, in terms of responses to our survey, about half the respondents were aged 22 to 25. About half the respondents were aged 22 to 25, but another 20% were aged 26 to 29. So, it's clearly there are people right through at all points in their 20s and into their early 30s who are working as runners. And from what we just heard from Priscilla, that's fine. That's fine.
Absolutely. So I was going to say with runners as well, because you're often expected to hit the ground running. People almost warm to people that are a bit older, that have a bit of life experience, whether it's been, working in an office or theatre or wherever it is, that has kind of an emotional intelligence. So it's almost, it can be beneficial.
Yeah. Question there. Can we take those two and then respond?
I'm looking to break into the industry at the moment. I work in software, so completely different. But the problem I've got is being over 35. I've got a family. I've got financial commitments. If I suddenly start to become a runner, which seems to be one of the main ways in, aside with the aforementioned comments about network, notwithstanding, is that my biggest concern, if I transfer across into the television industry, particularly on the technical side, which is where I'd go, is the financial issue. I would love to start working on all of that side of things, but if I suddenly go freelance, what happens to my rent next month? What happens to the fees for all the things that my children do next month? Is there anything in particular that you'd point me to, apart from network, that would maybe help in that kind of scenario where you need to be able to transfer across but still have a certain amount at least of financial security when you start, to know that there is going to be money coming in?
In terms of technical, what type of role or...
Camera, vision, mixing, that kind of thing.
Cool. I mean, Dom, DI.
Do you want to take two questions, or do you want me to answer that just now?
Can we take the question behind as well, and then just think about that one? And thanks very much.
Yeah, I just wanted to check the BBC production trainee pool scheme and production trainee scheme. All these schemes are really not open to international students that much, because I'm a tier 2 visa student, tier 4 visa student, and if for BBC to employ me, I will need them to sponsor my visa. So all these options kind of doesn't work for us at all. So I just wanted to know if BBC and Channel 4 has anything that works for international students.
Well, you need to be able to have need to have a visa to be able to live and work in this country, because the trainee scheme is paid. It's not vocational, so to speak. Therefore, you're earning. So you have to have all the necessary legislative requirements to be here. That's the kind of bald answer to that question. It doesn't mean to say, though, that when you're here that you might be able to apply for some form of work experience to build up your CV, because at the end of the day, people are going to look at what you've been doing, and work experience is important in that CV, as well as the things like your own YouTube channel. And social media has given so much more opportunity for individuals to go and create their own content and to upload it and have however many million likes for whatever, and that's really sellable now. It's a real commodity that we look for in individuals. I think to your point about the moving from your software world to the kind of creative industries, I think what you need to look at is where your transferable skills are, and what the opportunities are for you to transfer from. For example, I've no idea what world of software you live in, but I'm thinking that you might have transferable skills that could potentially fit with the development of the iPlayer, for example, which doesn't get you directly into where you want to be in the long term, but what it does do is it potentially creates an avenue for you to pursue a career that you want to pursue. And it also gives you potentially some security in relation to income as well. I think we have to be really realistic about this, though, is that the TV industry is a very peripatetic industry that works on a contract basis. There are, and we can have, Martin and I could probably have a long debate about that in lots of different ways. But the reality is that productions come and go, and you work on those productions for the length of time. With a broadcaster like with ourselves or Channel 4, there's potential for longer-term contracts that you can work across a range of genre and a range of different program types. But I think with an indie, an indie staffs up a show, they deliver the show, and then they staff down again. And that's just the harsh reality of the production sector that we live in. But I do think that you should look at what your transferable skills are. And it might be that, you know, I had this conversation this morning with a whole bunch of trainees that you may have an A road that you want to pursue, but actually you might have to go down some B roads. And you might have to just think about what those B roads might be in order for you to kind of reach your long-term destination.
Any other comments, Grace, Amy?
I would just say as well, try and get some more experience in sound and camera before you quit your job or do anything rash. You know, get more experience, chat to people that are already in that field. A lot of productions shoot at weekends. If you approached a sound mixer and said, "Can I come out with you on a Saturday just to see and have a chat with you, see how you work, shadow you?" I'm sure, you know, there's so many people out there that are willing to help and share that experience.
I also think research is quite key here as well. I mean, you can go onto the Creative Skill Set website and have a look at all the different kinds of roles that kind of match the transferable skills that you have. I always say you don't have to wait for the likes of Channel 4, BBC, ITV or an indie to give you a role. You can get out there now and start doing it. And I know it's hard because you've got a family, and I sympathise with that, but you are going to have to do stuff on the side and probably kind of work experience for a little while to build up your experience.
I think as well, kind of this goes to you, but maybe to everyone as well, think about where you want to get creatively. I think when you start in TV, you think there's a very definite route, and you should, if you're going into productions, you should be a researcher, then AP, then this, and when actually just to draw out the point that it is sometimes the B roads. I mean, I started in shopping telly, and it was the best thing I could have done to learn how a live TV studio works, and a lot of people are like, it's not real telly or this or that, but I absolutely valued it so much. And something like that with vision mixing, that happens 12 hours a day live. Just think about what else, if you kind of almost say baby step into TV, think about kind of online things and what they're doing, and live shows and things at the O2 and things like that, and think about it creatively.